Wow, that's a great introduction. I'm not sure if I can live up to it. It's very impressive. I really appreciate you having me and having our team here. It's pretty exciting to be in Malaysia in general. So how many of you have ever been traveled to the United States by show of hands? So we've got a pretty large group. So of all of you, how many of you heard of Chick-fil-A, the Chick-fil-A restaurant? All right, we've got a few. This is great because we haven't run into too many of you in the last few days. So that makes me feel really good. Okay? So those of you, like, think of some big brands that you're familiar with, right? Most of you know about Starbucks, right? You heard of McDonald's? We're actually right behind them in terms of brand strength in the United States. But it's weird because it's almost like a cult-like following. The people that heard of it love it. You don't have too many people that don't like it. You have a lot of people that don't know about it, right? I'm really proud to share kind of the Chick-fil-A story. And I'll tell you the one thing that convinced me to join. So as Shireen had said, I've worked for some very large companies, some of the largest ones in the world, the largest in the history of the world, right? So Walmart, over $500 billion. And what do you think their corporate purpose is? It's usually a financial number, right? I want to be largest in terms of sales, largest in terms of this market, whatever it may be, most profit. Chick-fil-A's corporate purpose. Anybody know? Has anybody heard this before? I see a smile back there. Oh, you heard? Okay, all right, that's good. I'm going to pay you right after this, all right? It's to glorify God. Those are the very first three words. How many corporations that, from the United States anyway, have incorporated the word God or the Lord or anything regarding religion in their corporate purpose? It is one of the reasons, it's one of the primary reasons why we're so passionate about Chick-fil-A. I say that, but it's not a Christian company. It believes a lot in Christian values, though. There's a distinction between the two, okay? But there is a Christian portion of Chick-fil-A, and that's called LifeShape. So there's the Chick-fil-A Corporation, which makes about $18 billion, right? It's the third largest food brand in the country right now, and we're actually expanding out to Canada and Puerto Rico with our sights on Asia as the next opportunity, okay? So what's really fascinating, you have the LifeShape portion of the business. So remember, Chick-fil-A sells food, and they've been known for the chicken sandwich, right? So it's 2 pickles on a fried, breaded chicken between 2 buns. Sounds really simple. Like, how often do you think we get 3 pickles? How often do you think we get 1 pickle? The goal is never. We always have 2 pickles. Now, why is that even important? Like, before I joined Chick-fil-A, I kept thinking, you know, we're a little bit, just really obstinate that we always have to have the same product for every customer. And I didn't appreciate really the benefit of having the consistency until the pandemic hit. And I had a friend of mine call me up and said, you know, that's the one thing I can count on. Whenever I go to Chick-fil-A, I get good food, great service, and I always get a salad, and there's always 4 tomatoes in the corner of the salad every single time. When I get a sandwich, I always get 2 pickles. What does that tell you about the brand? We've developed a relationship with the guest. And we call them guests. They're not customers, they're guests, right? So that relationship is built on trust. It's the consistency that breeds the trust. And so during COVID, just like most of the rest of the world, we had a lot of stores that closed, right, because of the pandemic. Believe it or not, that year was a record sales year. We had the highest sales of all time within our company, followed by the next year where we hit record sales, and this year we're hitting another record. So it's really uncanny when you think of the level of passion, and a lot of it comes from the brand, which also comes from the operators of our stores. We have a very unique model, and again, it's all started from the corporate purpose, to glorify God, to be a faithful steward of everything that's been entrusted upon us. Okay? So you have people that have like-minded beliefs, but it's a little bit more than just the words. It's a little bit more than the sales. We frankly think the key to our success is actually the culture that we've created. A lot of companies have tried to replicate the chicken sandwich, but they just can't seem to get what's really unique about our company and about our business. So you'll see a lot of competitors. KFC's got their own chicken sandwich. I can go on with all the different brands. Just about everybody has, because they saw that we had some level of success, and whenever you have success, your competitors will try to match it. But the one thing that we're able to sustain is that culture that makes our product unique, and it's more like that cult-like following, right? They think of Chick-fil-A, they think, oh, this is really different. This is something different. When I go in there, I have a team member, I have a person that works for Chick-fil-A that's gonna look me straight in the eye, right? And they're gonna ask me about my day. And you know what they say at the very end, at the end of the transaction, they say, it's my pleasure. Like, how many businesses say that, but with real conviction? They truly mean, we want to serve you. And that's essentially the heart of Chick-fil-A. It's about servant leadership. That's really the whole point of our conversation. And that's the whole point of what we try to do each and every day. And that actually carries forward to that second part of our business. Remember, it's the Chick-fil-A business, which is $18 billion. We've got about 2,500 stores scattered across the country, and we're about to branch out internationally. But the other side of it is we've got this funding separately owned and managed by another part of the family called LifeShape. So what do you think their goal is, right? So remember, the corporate purpose for Chick-fil-A was to glorify God. What is the LifeShape goal? What would you guess? Like, what could be different or even better than that? It's essentially to spread the gospel. Pretty simple, right? But what an admirable, remarkable goal to have. And so how do they do it? We try to encourage our team. So operators, team members, staff members, to participate and go to somewhere else, generally another country internationally. Now you got to think about it. Remember, how many countries are we in right now? Just 2, right? Kind of small presence outside. So we came to Malaysia as an example. How many Chick-fil-A's in Malaysia? None. So why are we doing this? It's got to be for sales, right? It's got to be for profit. There's no stores here. We go to, where else have we gone? Guatemala, Kenya. We've gone around the world, but it's not for money. It's not for profit. It's really for you. That's the essence of servant leadership, right? We want to do things to help others. One thing that really enamored me to Chick-fil-A is I started thinking about, what do people do when they find a great position, whether it's in pharmaceutical sales, whether it's in consulting, whether you're in research. You work for several years, maybe you climb the ladder and you become the senior level executive. And then what do you do when you're ready to retire? What do a lot of people do? They join nonprofits. They do things that they believe at that point are significant. Does that make sense? So the one thing that intrigued me about Chick-fil-A is someone told me right at the beginning, this is the one place as an operator or even as a staff member, you can do both. Think about how powerful that is. You don't have to wait 40 years, 20 years to do something that can make a difference. So how do you define significance? In my eyes, it really is to do something for someone else, to make a difference in the world, right? To be selfless. And frankly, that truly is what makes me happy. right? To be grateful for what I have and really to do something to help others. So I think back to my career, I've had the privilege and the honor of working for some very large organizations. And they're great. They're leaders in their own industry, but it wasn't until I came to Chick-fil-A that I realized not only do I have this opportunity to change the world, it also changed me as a person. And I feel like I'm a much better person than I was before I had started at the organization. And part of that is the opportunities to do things like this, right? I couldn't even imagine if you were to tell me 10 years ago that I'd be standing in Malaysia, right, in front of a group of successful young professionals, that I'd be doing this. But I've been granted this opportunity because of my relationship with Chick-fil-A, and just because I'm able to leverage some of the gifts that I've been given in order to be here today. So I'm very grateful, very privileged to be here today, and really want to see how we can all help you in your careers. And some of that, I think, is just the experiences that I've had and the gifts that I've been given to be able to be here to share some of my learnings. So let me think. So I've got a few more time, don't I? A few more minutes here. Am I good? Okay. This is good because I can really talk a long time. So I just want to make sure I'm hitting the mark. So servant leadership is really important to us. What we try to do is share that with the people that we work with. It's also embedded within our culture, within our team members at the stores, right? So our goal is really to make people feel valued, feel worth as they use Chick-fil-A, as they come into Chick-fil-A. I would also say that I've had, I probably should mention too that I've got 4 kids, and I had 3 older boys that have graduated from university, and then my daughter, who is the youngest, and she just got accepted into university. And I would say they would, I try to impart like some of my wisdom that I've learned to them as they've gotten older. And one of the things I've shared with them is that whole point about being grateful for what you do have. So there's 3 main points that I always shared with them. Just always be grateful for what you have. Because too many people, I think, are always looking for that next big thing, or just not satisfied with what they have, right? The second thing is always try to do something for someone else. When you do that, it's amazing how much better you feel as a person. And the third thing is really simple. It really is. It's to set a goal, right? Not be complacent. And part of setting the goal is because you want change. You want to get out of your comfort zone. And I shared as an example just yesterday about one thing that I do to get out of my comfort zone. It all started with an opportunity I had by passing a billboard while I was with my kids. And the billboard said there was discount skydiving lessons. How many of you have ever jumped out of a plane? You're not crazy enough to do it, right? Yeah. I happen to be crazy enough to do it because I was trying to inspire my kids, and the kids are so important to me. So, and then the other thing is, if you're going to do it, don't do it for a discount. You probably want to get the best quality experience you can because your life depends on it. And it truly does depend on it. But I did it. And it was more symbolic than anything. And ever since then, I've been looking for ways to get out of my comfort zone. So it's another thing to consider to continue to grow. And it could be something as simple as when you take a shower. How many of you like warm showers, right? Everybody does. Well, you might want to try something different to shake things up, and that's to turn the water to the coldest setting for 1 minute before you get out tomorrow. I'm going to encourage you to consider doing it because it's amazing like how much of a change it can provide you. And if you Google it, you'll find out that there's actually health benefits in doing so, right? It's better for your skin, it's good for your hair, It's incredible for your circulation, and it gives you a small topic to throw in when you're giving a talk in front of a large group too. But it truly invigorates me. So my point here is look for ways to truly get out of your comfort zone. Could be very simple things, but you'll feel invigorated in doing that. I probably should get back to a business topic here. So I would say one thing that I have learned too is a lot of companies will pay money to predict the future, right? If you could predict where you're going to be next year or 2 years from now or even beyond that, how much would you pay? You'd probably give everything. Because you know what? If you could predict the future, you could pick who's going to win the election. You could pick numbers in whatever lottery gambling site, and you would know with some level of assurance, right? That's one thing I used to do when I worked for PwC. We would be involved with strategic planning. And when I think about it, that's all it was. You did projections, forecast, and you'd compare it to what actually happened, right? You compare it to history, and in doing so, people would pay lots of money. We would get incredible contracts because people want to predict the future. So one thing that I wanted to share with you is like, how do you know what the future is going to hold? Well, sometimes you can talk to people that have the experience, right? Because everything that, for example, for my kids, I've shared with them that any decision that they're going to come up with, any decision, I probably have experienced it in my lifetime or one of my friends may have experienced. So essentially, all they have to do is ask. That's one key strategy I had of encouraging my kids to talk to me, right? And we've developed a great relationship where it's more peer-to-peer now, but it is truly like foretelling the future. And, you know, if you think about what companies do, as a consultant, I know I was able to leverage what other companies were doing in the industry, and things happen to happen very cyclically. So if you look at the stock market, at least in the United States, it's been declining over the probably last 9 months, 8 months. And a lot of people are panicking right now, not knowing what the future is going to hold. We see inflation going really high, but it's actually happened in the past. And I think that's one opportunity we have is understanding through trends what have happened to better appreciate what may be out there beckoning in the future. So I want to be able to share one last thing here. Do I have a minute just to do this? Can I draw on the board? Actually, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I've got a better thought. I'm very inspired now, right? Thank you, though, for willing to do that. How many people have heard of baseball? American baseball. How many females have ever played professional baseball in the United States? 0, right? So they've all been males. Are they all right-handed or left-handed? A little bit of both, right? It's actually disproportionate because you have a lot of left-handers, even though the main population is more dominant right-handers. What if I were to tell you that I only had one hand and I was 8 years old and I wanted to play baseball? What if that person was your nephew, was your child, was just somebody you cared about, and they said, I want to play Major League Baseball? How would you react? Would you be supportive, or would you say, that's crazy? I think most people would say you'd be encouraging, because you're 8 years old, right? You want to be supportive? The funny thing is, there was a person that actually, this is a true story, and he had a claw for his right hand. And he had this dream of playing Major League Baseball, but not Major League Baseball just as a player. He wanted to be a pitcher. How many people do you think would have believed this person would have made it? So let me just share this. The odds of making it to the major leagues is 0.4%. If you went to all the elite schools, you had all the elite training, you were on traveling baseball teams, and you made it to high school, which is when they start recruiting, 0.4%. Okay? But remember, this person only has one hand, and he believes he's going to be a major league pitcher, and he ends up doing it. His name is Jim Abbott. If you ever want to be inspired, I want you to look up Jim Abbott and Google him, and you'll realize how incredible this story is. Now, granted, he wasn't like the best pitcher in baseball. He had a record that was actually losing. It's like 80 wins, 111 losses. His ERA was about average, but he did something that was unbelievable, that only a handful of people has ever done before. He pitched a no-hitter. Can you imagine? That means 27 outs, right, in the course of a game, and not a single person got a hit. And he did this with one hand. I can't even imagine that. And I think about what the odds are for him to even make it, and I think it's truly an inspiring story, and it's really a miracle that a person can do that from such humble beginnings where he only had one hand. So I always love to share that story because it's really powerful to me, and to think whenever you get in the situation where you don't believe you can do it. And I thought about that story, and what if my daughter had asked me, like, I want to play Major League Baseball. I don't know if in good conscience I could have encouraged her, because I wouldn't want to disappoint her. But then it was a lesson to me that miracles do happen. And by the way, my daughter's name is Miracle. So after 3 boys, it was a miracle that she finally came through. So, all right.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Tom. I think that was really, really interesting and very inspiring. So now we're going to move into our Q&A session. And please feel free to send in your questions through your, just raising up your hand. And those of you who are on Zoom, you can send your questions online as well. If you please excuse me, I forgot to take my phone where the questions are coming in. Sorry. All right, so Tom, that was really interesting. So you shared some interesting anecdotes as well, like about how corporations are willing to pay high amounts for predictability, and also, about the story about that baseball player that went against the odds and made history. But can you also tell us, how does the SERVE leadership model, how did Chick-fil-A work that into your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, so there's several facets of the SERVE model that we embrace. So just as illustrations, we talk about the importance of results as well as relationships, right? So we tend to think it's one or the other generally, but then in our model, in our company, we believe you can do both, but you have to strike that balance. So you don't want to be focused strictly on results at the risk of relationships, because it could be too short term. That's the beauty of our organization. It's family run, so we're not catering to, in our situation, the financial markets. And profits and sales are important. It really is, but it's not the most important thing, right? It's an enabler. It allows us to be able to invest in other things like our communities, in our team members. And that's really what's really beautiful about the model, is we're really trying to make a difference, and not necessarily from strictly a sales perspective.
Okay, excellent. So, so you're the senior financial consultant. Do you guys do any analytics on the effect of a SERVE leadership model when it's implemented? Do you get lower, better attrition rates? Do you have, better staff satisfaction? And are they promoted upwards? I mean, more of them stay longer and they're promoted upwards.
Yeah, so we don't necessarily think of the serve model as something that we want to measure. It's really the outcome of how it's a catalyst for the culture, right? So I would say our turnover and our retention statistics are much better than the average. We don't really disclose what those are, but a lot of it's just the job satisfaction that people have. And I guess the most telling measure really is our sales. So we've hit record sales every year since I've been there, and that's over the course of 11 years. Um, our profit has been really strong. It's outpacing all the industry comparisons. But probably the best sign is when you think of our brand, we are the #1 brand in the food industry. So that's something we're most proud of, is that we have the feedback really from what we believe is who's the most important, and that's our guest.
Yeah, that's really amazing that even during the pandemic, you're hitting record sales. I have a follow-up question for that. But before that, I believe we have questions from our audience. So Max?
Yeah, this is Max. How do you deal with the growing LGBTQ whatever in US, especially the East and the West Coast?
Yeah,
I mean, that is as far as your business is concerned, you're branching out. I mean, how are you going to deal with this LGBTQ as a customers and also people that you're about to employ?
Max, that's a great question. You know, I usually don't say great because then everybody says every question's great and you don't want to rate them. That is a really insightful question. So several of you probably are aware there's some controversy around the brand, right? So when you ask that question, there's already an inherent belief in a lot of people, especially on social media, that there's been some judgment by the company. I would ask any of you to point out specifically where does it say that there's any type of prejudice or any type of concern over any group that we serve, right? There really isn't not anything documented. There's a lot of perceptions, misperceptions, I would say, about our brand. I would also say we tend to take a very conservative, quiet response to those type of critics. And what's surprising is, so I think I had pointed out earlier that we believe a lot in Christian values and biblical principles. I didn't say it was a Christian company. I said we believe a lot in the values, right? So with that said, there's people of varying faiths that are operators of our company, that work in our staff, in our corporate headquarters, okay? At the same time, there's also people of various orientations, sexual orientations, that are also operators as well as team members. We don't advertise that for a variety of reasons, because again, we're not trying to stir up any controversy at all. But you got to remember, use some rationale too. Why would any business, any large business, seek to discriminate against anybody, right? So we don't. We treat everyone with honor, dignity, and respect. So thank you for asking the question.
Yes. Thank you, Max, for that question. Thank you for that answer, Tom.
My
So we
pleasure.
have another question from Samantha.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I just have a quick check that Chick-fil-A has founded in 1946. So that's quite a long time ago. Why is it that you guys haven't come to Asia?
Oh, that's good. I like that. You know what? I got to say, that's a great question. So, I think we still needed to expand within kind of our home country at this point. It's almost like we have this philosophy too. I'm going to like segue a little bit off the question. When we open up a new restaurant, we try to make sure that what we do on the inside of the restaurant is right before we decide to expand out, like for delivery or for catering opportunities. We want to make sure we do it right first. So we tend to have a more methodical, slower pace, but we believe it works. So that's the other thing. We have about 2,500 stores currently across the United States, but we're not in every state yet. We just opened up in Hawaii. That was a very big deal. We're not in Alaska, we're not in Wyoming. There's certain states that we're still not in. And I represent a lot of the Northeast stores. So we've got a good, and it's actually our largest number of stores and the highest in terms of sales, but we still have a lot of room to grow. So we've been very controlled in terms of our rapid growth. And some of that is we got to make sure we do it right before we decide to venture out. So we've only been, I think I had mentioned Canada and Puerto Rico at this point, and we are looking at Asia. But it's also a lot more complex. So I had worked at Walmart and we ventured out and expanded internationally, and that was really hard, and there was a lot of learnings that we had. Chick-fil-A is a lot more strategic in the sense that we want to make sure we minimize whatever mistakes there are, so we may be a lot slower than other companies. But we have the opportunity to be a little bit long-term and strategic. So thank you for asking that. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. And also another question from Clayton.
Hi, it's Clayton here. I would like to get back to the topic today, serve leadership model. May I know, do you apply that also to your house? I assume that you are the leader of your house, right? So do you do the chores and things and...
Wow, that's a tough question. So was the question about, do I like kind of live up to the fact that I'm doing chores in my
Not
house?
only in your company, not only to your guests, but to people around you, especially your, because the toughest thing is to your family, right?
Yeah.
That I think, yeah. So, and your children might not listening to the father most of the time. I
Yeah.
assume that. So do you apply that as well to your
Yeah,
house?
you know, that is good. So first of all, in complete candor, I'm divorced. Okay. And you know, a lot of people like feel really like awkward when I say that. And I say that because I'm very comfortable with where I'm at right now. And part of it is just like being genuine. And so I say that because I truly embrace kind of the values that we have at work. And that's why I think it resonates with me and a lot of the people that I work with, is that we can be ourselves. So when I'm at home, like I do believe in the whole concept of servant leadership and serving others. So I try to serve as a role model as well for my kids, so they adopt those same type of principles. But I am like I'm pretty cheap too. I'll admit it. So I'm doing everything. We're mowing the lawn ourselves. I'm doing the laundry. I was doing laundry this past weekend, right? So it's just the way our philosophy is. And I think some of that too is probably more of the Asian mentality, where we believe in working really hard and just appreciating kind of the beauty of working hard. So thanks.
All right, thank you. So yes, another question.
Hi, good evening. My name is Johnny. I have two simple questions. Number one, in the long run, does your company, Chick-fil-A, is going to be a food-focused business, or actually banking on the properties they're going to bank on based on the locations? So we are looking into this business model so that we can learn from Chick-fil-A. Number two is, in this modern world and looking ahead, what is going to come is people are more health conscious. So we are actually trying to avoid fast food. So how do you think your business can sustain within the next 10 to 20 years then?
Oh, that's great. You've done some research, so I can tell you understand the industry. I would say that I'll take the second question first about the health focus. What we strive to do is understand where the customer is, right? Where the guest is going. It does seem like the trends have moved towards more healthier eating. And it's probably to the detriment of some of our competitors, where they've been known for preservatives. And it's part of the reason why they're able to deliver food so quickly, right? Microwaves, there's other ways to deliver food quickly. We do believe the guests want products that are healthier. So we have moved, and we made a pretty big marketing push when we went to no antibiotics ever chicken. It cost us money, but we believe this is what guests wanted. We also have introduced a lot more salads. We have other products that really cater to certain segments of our population, so like gluten-free buns. Not a lot of people know we offer it. We do. But at the same time, one of our big selling products are the chicken sandwich, right? The crispy chicken sandwich that's breaded. We also offer a grilled version of that too. So it comes really as we have to strike that balance, because when you have all these different menu options, it becomes a challenge from an inventory perspective, comes to a challenge from a speed perspective, right? Because guests, number one, are looking through the menu, trying to figure out what they want. That's slowing down our drive-through lanes. At the same time, you think of the challenges operationally for being able to offer too many different items. So we try to strike that balance. But health is one thing that we are definitely keeping an eye on. And just as a heads up, because I think there's a strong population here that really enjoys spicy foods, we see it in our trends as well. So if you go to most of our urban markets, spicy foods dominate much more than our staples, like the chicken sandwich. So we're starting to see the trends. But my point to you is that we're really relying on where the customer is going, and we're trying to meet that need. And so we're constantly reassessing. And right now we're seeing a lot more interest, and it could have been spurred on by the pandemic, and that's looking at home delivery. So having food delivered directly to your house as opposed to even coming in. And some of that too, again, is driven by where we're seeing the demographic being younger and younger people who are more accustomed to using an app. So your first question too about real estate, I think a lot of retailers had looked at that in the past. Like I think, do you recall Sears? So at some point, Sears, the retailer, the large retailer, they had more value in their real estate than they did in the rest of their retail business. In our case, we have kind of a unique approach to it. We do lease a lot of properties, but then we do own most of our freestanding restaurants. So the way we manage this is operators don't own the real estate or the equipment, but they lease it from us, okay? And they pay a certain amount of rent. It is a very large portfolio, as you can imagine, but it's also pretty expensive. So we have to strike the decision: do we want to have a restaurant in Manhattan, which is like Singapore, which is going to be very expensive, right? Do we have the sales to justify it? Right now, it's been proving out that it has worked. I don't know if we've made a firm decision on like what that long-term business proposal is going to look like. I'm like amazed at companies like Amazon that years ago that started as a bookstore, for those of you that remember, and now sells everything, right? I don't think we'll ever get to that point where our business model is going to change dramatically. It is really to serve guests. And we're going to have some people element to it. Even if it's delivery, we'll still have some people side to that. I don't know if real estate would make sense, but it's certainly part of the overall portfolio. I see us is in the people business, and food is the critical component of that. I think I appreciate it even more so over time, how important food and dinner is. It's more than just consuming a meal. It's more than the nutrition. A lot of it is the community and the relationships that you're able to form. And even more importantly, I think we were smart at the beginning. Truett Cathy was smart, our founder, because it brought families together, it brought people together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I hope, Johnny, that answers your question. I think Swiss has a question.
Yes, good evening, Thomas. I'm Swiss, I'm the photographer sitting in front of you.
Yes.
I would like to ask, I think if you do come to Asia, there will be a lot of us who will be interested to be franchisor. So what are the criteria that you're looking for? Are you going to people who go to church, alpha people? Share with us, what is the criteria?
That's very, very astute. So first of all, how much do you think it costs, US dollars, to own a Chick-fil-A? $500,000, that's a good guess. Any other guesses? What's that? 100,000. That's a lot less than $1 million, right? Or $500,000. Anybody else guess? One more guess. A quanta million?
Are we
No,
talking
quarter
USD
million.
or Malaysian ringgit? We're talking USD, right?
Yeah. Well, it increased. It actually increased a few years ago. Within the last 10 years, it had been $5,000. Yeah.
$5,000?
Yeah. And you know what? We decided to double it because of inflation. It is currently $10,000 to apply. So that's the good news, right? Compare it against other franchisees, right? So look up Google. I know what the answer is, but if you Google McDonald's, you'll see it's probably closer, more than actually any of the guesses that came up here today. I would say their average sales per unit is substantially less than ours. So it's going to be a little bit more than $1.5 million for a McDonald's. We'll probably have about 8 times that, okay? So a lot of people want Chick-fil-A franchise. So how many people do you think apply over the course of a year? Yeah. It's over 18, closer to 19,000 applicants just in the last 12 months, okay? Remember I gave the statistic about what are the chances of making it in Major League Baseball if you went to all the right schools, you played on all the right teams? Did anybody remember what that statistic was?
0.4.
Very good. Oh my gosh. Somebody paid attention here. 0.4%. It's even harder to become a Chick-fil-A operator. Somebody made this comment once. It's harder to get into Chick-fil-A CFA than it is to the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. It's harder than it is to get into Harvard Business School. So with the right background, and that's what's really fascinating. We're looking for 3 things, essentially, with every staff member or operator. It's character, chemistry, and competence. Just think about that, like how intriguing that is. So you can probably teach competence. You think about the skills necessary to operate a restaurant. How easy is it to teach chemistry, right? Or character? Can you really teach that? You either have it or you don't. I'll share a weird statistic that I appreciate. We've never parted ways with an operator because of poor performance. And by the way, we don't really have poor performance. And if we did, I would blame myself. I'd blame the staff members for not reaching out, encouraging, helping enough. But we would part ways if there was an integrity issue, a character issue, right? That to me is another reason why this is a very unique organization. I would encourage you to apply it. We have people from, most people actually do not have a traditional business background. You'll have teachers, former teachers, military. It really runs the gamut, right? So again, we're open to anybody that wants to apply. We're just not yet quite in Malaysia. So I can see there's a few people that may be interested anyway. But if you go online, you'll be able to search and you'll see all the specific criteria you need. But essentially, it's a $10,000 investment. So.
Okay, thanks for that question, Swiss. So for the benefit of everyone here, I'm going to ask a follow-up question on that. So since we know you, and since you're here, and we send in our application, can we put you as our reference?
You can certainly do that. I don't know if it'll help you, though. It may be the other direction. So.
Why not? You're the senior financial consultant.
You can try.
Yeah, we'll probably come and get a cover letter from you.
There might be
strengthen our application.
I'll definitely get you a free chicken sandwich.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Thank you very much.
At a minimum, that may be worth it.
So I think we should get his contact number and email later, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you very much for sharing with us about the franchise opportunities in Chick-fil-A. But still, bear in mind that it's harder to get in Chick-fil-A CFA than it is to get into their national baseball team. Yeah.
That's right.
All right. So no questions from those of you online. I think you're very shy online. So I am going to use my moderator privileges and ask the next question. So I heard with great interest that Chick-fil-A did really well during the pandemic season. Can you share with us about how did Chick-fil-A navigate the really challenging pandemic times and still came out on tops?
So I think a lot of it was truly a blessing. so I say then, I have so many stories of what happened. So I shared earlier, I had a friend of mine who called me up and said, that's what's really amazing. I can always count on the 4 tomatoes on a salad, right? It's the trust that we've built. So people felt comfortable coming to Chick-fil-A because they thought it was a safe place to eat and they knew they were going to get great service. A lot of our competitors did not do well during the pandemic. And I would say some of these stores that we had, especially in malls, did not do well because the mall was closed. So if the overall mall was closed, they're not going to leave it open just for a Chick-fil-A. However, I say that, and we actually had some exceptions because they knew how strong Chick-fil-A was, and it was a draw for the other businesses. So they wanted us to stay open, and they left us open just to help the mall recover. But in general, a lot of our malls did close. So what does that mean, though? That meant we had more customers that still craved Chick-fil-A. And one thing that we invested heavily in, even before COVID hit, was our drive-thrus. So that was one area that was just perfect and right for a situation like that, where they could get through the drive-thru fairly quickly, and they didn't have to interact with anybody. So they felt safe, and they still were rewarded with our food. The other thing is we invest pretty heavily in technology. So we have a Chick-fil-A app where you can use your phone to order anything off the menu. And again, you could even have it delivered or going through the drive-thru, which remained open during the course of this. But also, I want to add to this story, what was really incredible, and I shared the story with one of my colleagues the other day. I was privileged to learn that the operators that remained open, that were doing very well because their business started escalating as a result of the pandemic, they wanted to do something for the operators that had their malls closed. So anonymously, they would donate money to help support them in like paying their mortgage or their rent. And a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people in Chick-fil-A don't even know this. But complete strangers, like they found out, one actually reached out to me. It's like, do you know who could benefit if I were to pay for it? Because this operator was from a mall years ago, and now he operates 2 stores. And I just thought it was the kindest gesture. To a complete stranger, he was willing to pay what their mortgage was. And he did not want anybody to find out who he was. And then somehow word got around, and that operator who's the recipient was not even in the same state. And she found out, and she just could not believe that somebody that didn't even know her was wanting to help her out during a really difficult time. So, because her whole business was dependent on the sales and income from the restaurant. And if the restaurant's closed, it's not like an employee type relationship. She has 0 income. So I just thought that was a really kind thing to happen. So during the darkest times, we actually celebrate some really positive things.
Yeah. Wow, excellent answer.
Yeah.
So I think what Chick-fil-A did differently is that they had consistency that was always there, but I think they also invested heavily in the relationship with their customers as well as in their employees as well. And I think you mentioned something about innovation, digital innovations to improve convenience, such as drive-thrus, the apps, and all that. And I think a really nice component that you added on top of everything else is giving back. It's like helping those around them and being a blessing to others, giving out of the overflow that the business has benefited from, right? So thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure having you with us, Tom. And we do hope that you and your team come back soon. And yeah, we'd love to host you again. And Chick-fil-A franchise notwithstanding, we'd still love to have you back here.
Absolutely.
And thank you everyone for interacting with us and keeping this so lively and interesting. And yeah, please stay around. Don't go home yet. The show is not over because following this, we still have a church service, and our speaker will be Karen Ng, who will be speaking on the Christian perspective on community care. So that's going to be really interesting. And next week, we have a live talk from Pastor Samuel Neeson. So hope to see all of you here and those of you online as well. And Christmas is coming. So our Christmas party will be on December the 8th, Thursday, right here. Okay, do RSVP, come dress festive. Okay, and our Christmas Day service would be on 25th of December, which is a Sunday, 10 a.m. It's going to be here as well. And our theme this year is Hope is Here, right? So I hope that's the theme for our general elections as well. But okay, so more logistics. You can park your cars because parking down here is limited. So you can park your cars at the Indian Visa car park for a flat rate of 6 ringgit only. Okay, but those of you who park at this car park, remember that you need to remove your vehicles by 9:45 p.m. because they shut the gates at 10 p.m. and we don't want you to be stranded. Ladies who park at this place, please let one of us know, and please do not go there. Do not walk to this place yourself. We are happy to accompany you. I might not be a really useful bodyguard, but we do have really macho men here who can accompany you to your car. So those of you here, please interact with us, follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, okay? So thank you all so much. My name is Shireen and this is Tom, and we hope to see you the following weeks. This is Shireen signing off. Bye-bye.